Christmas Eve fire, or known as the missing Sodder children case. And in my last video, I had mentioned that I am working on kind of a longer unsolved mystery case, and it's still in the works. It's just taking a lot longer than I had anticipated. So I just thought that we could cover the missing Sodder children today. So I actually have all of my notes written down on my notebook right here. So you might hear the pages turning occasionally, but I will try and keep it quiet. This video is also going to be a bit longer than my other ones, so I do have my iced water right here with me, and I do have another glass of water to refill my iced water. So I will be taking drinking breaks, and you might hear me pour myself another glass. We'll see how it goes. So I actually had been working on this case for a while, and I just recently saw one of my favorite podcasts cover this case, and I didn't know if I wanted to post this video so close to them posting it, but I figured what the heck. So we are going to talk about the 5 missing Sodder children from West Virginia. And the main question in this case really is, are they alive? And if they are, who took them? And if they're not, who killed them? Because, in my opinion, this fire was not accidental. And we'll kind of get into why I think that. So, let's get into this case. So, this was the night before Christmas in 1945, and everyone went to sleep, including the 9 out of 10 children that were in George and Jenny's house. So, George and Jenny Sodder had 10 children, but their oldest son was away in the military. So they had 9 kids in the house, and they all went to bed. And then right around 1 o'clock in the morning, a fire broke out. George and Jenny and 5 of their children managed to escape, but 5 of their other children, Maurice, who was 14, Martha, who was 12, Lewis, who was 9, Jenny, who was 8, and Betty, who was 5, were still in the house, and they were never seen again. George had tried to save them by breaking a window, which is not the smartest thing to do in a fire, because it actually fuels the fire with more oxygen. But who is really thinking straight when you know that 5 of your children are trapped in a house? So he broke the window and realized that the entire downstairs was engulfed in flames. figure out which kids he needed to save. 2-year-old Sylvia, who has a crib in the master bedroom, was outside safe with her mom. 17-year-old Miriam, 23-year-old John, 17-year-old George Jr. were all safe outside. The two boys, John and George Jr., fled their upstairs bedrooms and emerged outside with their hair completely engulfed in fire. George knew. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry about the cars. George knew the other children had to be upstairs, but the stairs leading to the kids' room were on fire as well. He went to the side of the house, thinking that he could use the ladder that he always kept leaning up against the house, but it was missing. He didn't really think much of this at the time because he wasn't really thinking rationally. So he started to brainstorm another way to get his kids out from the upstairs. So he decided that he would go over to his 2 coal trucks and drive them up to the house and then climb on top of them. So he went over to the trucks and turned the key to start the ignition, and they wouldn't start. He thought that this was strange because he had just used them the day before and they were perfectly fine. So he then ran over to a rain barrel that he kept on his property and tried to scoop water, but all of the rain was frozen because this was the middle of the winter. So at this point, the house was completely engulfed and filled with smoke. The daughter, Miriam, called the Fayetteville Department. The daughter, Miriam, called the Fayetteville Fire Department from the neighbor's house, but got no response. She had to initially call the operator, and then the operator would connect them to whatever number they were trying to reach. But she couldn't get a hold of the operator. A neighbor nearby also saw the fire and made a call, but once again, nobody answered. So it seemed like they didn't have operators running at all times of the day. Oops, I think I skipped a page. So the neighbor rushed into town and he found the fire chief, who initiated Fayetteville's quote-unquote fire alarm. Now, this fire alarm was actually a phone tree system. So basically what it is the fire chief calls one person and that person calls another person until they reach their entire team. And then they all get to do the firehouse, get their equipment, get their truck, Sodder's house until 8 a.m. that morning, and by this time, the house was long gone and was merely a pile of smoking ash. The crew searched the grounds and they found no human remains. Now this is really weird because I'll get into that in a minute, but no bones were found, no fragments of bones were found, nothing was found of the 5 children. It's extremely unheard of to not have any remains in a house fire, especially 5 bodies. So the question was this fire hot enough to fully disintegrate 5 bodies? And typically house fires burn at 11,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And to fully burn or to completely incinerate a human body, bones, everything, the fire must be 15,000 degrees at least, but most of the time hotter. So that means that this house would have had to be burning for 2 hours straight at least 15,000 degrees. That just doesn't seem plausible because the house actually completely crumbled by 45 minutes of it being on fire. So that just doesn't make any sense. So the chief did an investigation, a very quick investigation, and said that he had professionally thought that the children died in the fire and that it was due to faulty wiring. So the investigation lasted about 2 days, and by 3 or 4 days, George bulldozed the property right after the investigation closed. So when I had first heard about this case, thought that it was extremely weird that he bulldozed this property so quickly, because it almost made it seem like he was trying to get rid of evidence. But the more that I look into this case, the less I think George committed the murders. And I think that he was just being a grieving father who wanted to make a memorial out of the fire scene. So the coroner's office issued the death certificates of the 5 children shortly after the new year. And Jenny and George started to question the deaths of the children, mainly because they got to talking as a family and kind of realized that there was a lot of really kind of sketchy things that happened leading up to the fire, kind of suspicious things, and we'll go over those in a minute. But my biggest weirdest thing, and this was actually brought up in the podcast that I was listening to that I really hadn't thought of before, but if George killed them, if he killed the kids and started the fire and all of that, and then the investigation was closed and pronounced an accident, why would he bring them back up? Like, why would he want to reopen an investigation if he was guilty? So they were kind of starting to think that maybe this fire was an intentional fire and that their children had been abducted, but why take 5 children? Why not take a couple of the smallest ones? Or take them all? Because when you get more into this case, it really does seem like there was more than just one person abducting, so taking 5 kids does seem possible, but I don't know, if you're gonna take 5, why don't take them all? Like, why was it that those children were taken and not the rest of them? Or, I don't know, it just seems weird. But we are going to kind of get into a little bit of George's past life, just because I can't really explain the theories at the end unless you know where George was from and who George is. So, George Sodder was born in Italy in 1895 and immigrated to America in 1908 from Italy. He worked as a driver and then started to haul dirt for construction companies, and then began hauling coal. He married Jenny and had 10 children, and the Sodders were known as a well-respected family in the middle class. George was very opinionated about politics and his beliefs, and he never was really afraid to express how he was feeling. But it was impossible to get George to talk about his past life and talk about why he left Italy and what his driving motive was to leave Italy. So, this is kind of when we start to talk about the strange occurrences that happened before the fire. And George had remembered that a strange man appeared a few months before the fire, and he started to talk to George about his hauling company, and it seemed like a casual conversation between 2 guys, and it seemed just like a friendly passerby who was just trying to get to know people around him. And the more that they talked, the more that this man kind of started to walk around the property, and he walked next to their fuse box outside and looked at the wires, and he had told George that the wires were faulty. He had told George that the wires were faulty, and he said, "This is going to cause a fire one day." And the weird thing about that was that George had actually just had his box checked. He had just had all of the electrical stuff checked in his house, and everything came back good. So the fact that this man just out of nowhere told George that his house was going to burn down one day, it's kind of sketchy. So to coincide with that one, Shortly after that, another man had tried to sell George and his family life insurance, and George had repeatedly told this man no, and he actually started to get really angry at George, and he told George, "Your house is going to go up in smoke, and your children will be destroyed." He had also told George, "You will pay for the dirty remarks you made about Mussolini." And George was actually very opinionated about the Italian dictator Mussolini. And so this actually did make sense and kind of pointed towards questions about the Italian mafia being involved in all of this, but we'll get into that later as well. I'm jumping ahead of myself. So, the older Sodder sons noticed something odd too. Before Christmas, an older man watched the younger kids walk back from school on the side of the road, which, I don't know, that could be a lot of things. That could just be somebody being creepy, that could be connected, that could also just be somebody waiting for his own kids or his own grandkids or, whatever. But, okay, so then Jenny had kind of talked to the police again because they wanted to reopen this investigation, and she was telling the police about what happened that night, and she said that before she went to bed, she took a peek downstairs to make sure that everything was locked up and the lights were turned off, but the curtains were open and the lights were on, and the front door was actually unlocked. So she went downstairs and she closed the curtains and turned off the lights and locked the door, and her daughter Miriam was laying on the couch. So she went to bed upstairs, and shortly after falling asleep, she heard a noise on the roof that sounded like somebody had dropped something on the roof, and then she could hear it rolling. And this startled her, but she didn't really think much of it, and she went back to sleep. One hour later, she woke up from smoke coming into her room. Jenny had a really hard time understanding why there were no remains of her kids, and she started to hold her own experiments by burning different animal carcasses and slabs of meat, trying to figure out why there were no remains of her own children. But of course, all of these experiments turned up inconclusive, and they would fry the meat and leave the bones behind. So this really didn't help her come to any conclusions. The telephone repairman had told the Sodders that their phone line was actually cut. So even if they did try to make a call from their house, they wouldn't have been able to reach anybody. And if the fire was electrical and caused by faulty wires, then the downstairs would not have been able to have lights on, which it did. So, once again, something just not adding up. Witnesses came forward and said that they saw a man standing outside the house with a block and tackle. And a block and tackle is actually used to remove car engines. And that kind of ties into the fact that George's trucks would not start. So at this point it started to kind of look more like a conspiracy than an actual accident. So another odd thing that happened was Sylvia, their daughter, found a hard rubber object in their yard and showed it to George, and it told her that she remembered hearing something on the roof, George looked at it and he said that it was actually part of a napalm pineapple bomb, which was used in warfare. And for him to identify that so quickly is kind of crazy. So I'm wondering if that has to do with the past that he does not talk about in Italy. Maybe he was involved in some Italian mafia stuff over there, and hey, that's why he decided to come to America in the first place. So now we kind of get into the reports of the sightings of the children, and this is kind of what really fueled the idea that the children were still alive. I'm really sorry if you guys can hear those cars. I don't know what is going on out there tonight. It's normally not like that, but one woman claimed to see the missing children looking out from a nearby car as the fire was burning, which is just so eerie to me. I couldn't even imagine being those kids. Another woman operating a tourist shop between Fayetteville and Charleston said that she saw the children the morning after the fire. I'm gonna pour myself some more water. I'm already out. So that lady had said that she served them breakfast. Another woman saw photos in the newspaper, and she said that she had seen 4 of the 5 children a week after the fire, with 2 women and 2 men, and they were both of Italian descent. Sorry, all 4 of them were of Italian descent. The group had gotten a large hotel room, and the woman tried to talk to them, but one of the men actually turned around and became extremely hostile and was yelling at her in Italian. They ended up leaving early the next morning. George and Jenny sent a letter to the FBI and received a reply from J. Edgar Hoover himself in 1947, and his letter pretty much said that although the case was interesting, it sounded more like a local dispute, and he wouldn't get involved unless it was approved by the local police department. And of course the local police department denied this because they didn't like the idea of federal agents coming in and pretty much telling them that they botched the investigation. So they ended up just denying FBI the jurisdiction. So at this point, the family turned to a private investigator, Tinsley, who said that the insurance salesman that got angry at George for not purchasing his insurance or his life insurance was actually part of the coroner's jury who deemed the fire an accident, which that's already sketchy enough. Like, that shows major red flags to me that this was the man who was involved in this case, but he can't be the only one because it was just such a large and well followed through plot that it just doesn't seem like one person can pull it off. So pretty much the rumor was that the fire chief had found a heart in all of the ashes of the house, and he hid it in a dynamite box and buried it at the scene. So this investigator convinced the chief to show him, and they dug it up together. They took it to a coroner who poked and prodded at the heart, but concluded that it was actually just beef liver, untouched by the fire. Soon after, the Sodders heard rumors that the chief was telling people that the contents of the box actually hadn't been found at the fire, and that he buried the liver in hopes that the family would have enough closure to stop the investigation. So over the next few years, tips and leads continued to pour in, and George saw a newspaper photo of school children and was convinced one of them was Betty. In August of 1949, the Sodders brought in a Washington, D.C. pathologist to do another investigation. The excavation that he had done uncovered partially burned dictionaries, a few damaged coins, and several shards of vertebrae. So they took it in for an examination, and the report said that it was actually 4 lumbar vertebrae belonging to one person. And this person had to have been 16 or 17 years old due to the way that they were unfused, and the oldest that this person could be was 23, because that's when they become completely fused. And the oldest boy that was in the fire was actually 14, and the pathologist said that yes, it is possible, but it is highly unlikely that a 14-year-old boy would have a spine aged to 16 or 17. And these bones were actually untouched by fire as well. So, most likely these bones were from the dirt that George had hauled in to make the garden after the fire. So at this point, the governor of Fayetteville and the police told the Sodders that their case was pretty much hopeless. And George and Jenny made a billboard and flyers and reward money of $10,000. Now, in the podcast that I watched, he actually looked up how much $10,000 would be in real time now, and $10,000 in 1949 equates to $140,000 in today's money. So they really thought that their kids were out there. Letters began to arrive, and the first one was from St. Louis, telling Jenny that her oldest daughter was in a convent there, kind of like a church, basically. And one arrived from Texas, and a person had said that he was in a bar and he heard people talking or making incriminating comments about the Christmas Eve fire in West Virginia. And then there was one from Florida saying that the children were staying with a distant relative of Jenny's. So George and Jenny, of course, went to every single one of these locations and tried to investigate. But nothing really came of it. More than 20 years after the fire, Jenny received a letter with no return address, but it was postmarked in Kentucky and the contents of this letter was a photo of a young man in his 20s, and on the back of it was written Lewis Sodder, and there was a cryptic message in the back with just a bunch of numbers. The Sodders couldn't confirm that this was their son, but he did have similar features. So they sent a private investigator to Kentucky to kind of follow up on this, but they never heard from their private investigator again. They updated the billboard with the recent photo, and that was kind of the end of the investigation. George died in 1965, and Jenny and their surviving children continued to search for the 5 missing children, but no evidence ever came back up. Jenny continued to live in their family home and wore black until the day that she died in the 1980s. So the biggest conspiracy theory about this is that it was the Italian mafia, and that the children had been abducted and taken back to Italy and put into human trafficking, and they never contacted their family just to keep them safe. But I would love to know what you guys think about this case. I find it incredibly fascinating, and I think it's crazy how the more that I dug into just the contents of this case and the evidence, the more that my opinion changed, and I no longer think that George was guilty. I think the only thing that he was guilty of was upsetting the mafia. So, do let me know in the comments what you think. I would love to start a conversation about this with you guys, and if you have any information that I may have missed or did not include, please post down below. I'm sorry about the car again. I'm gonna have a lot of editing to do on this photo or on this video. But yeah, just let me know what you guys think. I really enjoy getting feedback from you guys and enjoy starting conversations. So just leave a comment down below, and I look forward to being able to share